Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make a buying decision. Now, before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of this business. It's a dropshipping business created in July of 2020 in the home niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $152,774 and makes an average of $11,397 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are a primary domain and all site content and files, a Shopify account, virtual assistant introductions, supplier relationships, Facebook page, an email list with around 4,000 subscribers, and additional design assets. So for everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 67137 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So that's a brief overview of the business for sale. Let's hear from the seller with me today. So welcome to the show, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your business. So, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses or this business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started this business in July of 2020, and that was, a couple months after the lockdown. And at the time, I was working my 9-to-5 job, and I kind of wanted to take the time that I had from the pandemic and, try to do something with it. And so I came across the idea of a dropshipping store. And, I had heard one of my friends knew someone who was making it successful. And I thought, hey, that's something that I could try. And that's kind of how I got the idea to start it. And so I worked on it, kind of part-time for a couple months. And then I think at the beginning of 2021, I quit my full-time job and kind of just did the dropshipping store as my main source of income.
That's awesome. That's a very quick transition. I'm actually not sure how quick or slow the transitions normally are, but July 2020 and then the beginning of 2021 to go into this full time, that's awesome. So why are you deciding to sell the business now instead of keeping it and growing it further?
That's a good question. So I've been working at this for almost 3 years now. And honestly, one reason is I feel like my passion's not really in, online business like e-commerce and SEO and things like that. And then I also have some life things going on too. I'm getting married in the summer this year, and we want to buy a house and settle down. And there's just kind of a lot of things going on. I also have some real estate investing that I've started doing that I kind of am more interested in, and I want to focus on a little bit more as well. So I don't have too much, mental capacity to really take care of this store and grow it and give it the attention that it deserves. So I think maybe somebody else could take over and do it justice.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on you getting married and a lot of life experiences that it seems like you're going to have in this upcoming year. And you did mention something that was interesting, that about not being as interested in online business as potentially other assets. I know you mentioned getting into real estate, and I think as we're just getting more advanced, more modernized, it feels like the conversation is that everything is going into online business and that one should be involved only in online business, or that any business, if it's brick and mortar, for example, it's just doomed to fail. So it's interesting to just know kind of like what place online business does have, but then also to understand that there are other assets or other areas of life or work that one can still have valid passions for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, online business is definitely a big thing, but the world is a big place, so there's a million things to do, and we can all do a lot of different things, which is kind of cool, and we can all be very different in that way. So yeah.
and using online business in order to buy something that is then brick and mortar. So using to buy something that's not online, those two certainly have, I guess, their own place. Like the online business part of life or just business is enabling you to do these other very cool things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, you have built this business very quickly. And I guess I'm just looking at some your listing right now, and I'm just wondering, what did you learn from building this that worked or that you think contributed to your success that you experienced here?
Yeah. So in terms of things that I guess worked or didn't work, yeah, I guess a couple main things come to mind. So the biggest thing I think for me was hiring and delegation. So I had never really managed a team before. It was a small team, of course. So one thing that we tried that didn't work was I initially hired US based employees. But the thinking was that, hey, this is selling like home furniture to people in the United States. They're going to be United States based customers. So maybe it would be good to have, a salesperson or a customer facing role that was filled by somebody in the United States. And that ended up being a mistake because one, they're very expensive. Living costs are definitely higher here than compared to, let's say, the Philippines, where I ultimately ended up having my employees from. So it's expensive. You have to worry about payroll tax. You have to find someone to administer payroll. And ultimately, their performance also wasn't super good. And so that was kind of just issue that I was dealing with through most of 2021. And it just wasn't really effective and it was kind of very costly. So that was one thing that didn't work. And I guess ended up happening was, I ended up hiring better people in the Philippines. They work better. I don't pay them as much. And ultimately, I have a very good team now as a result of it. And they're very on top of things. So I guess that's one way, something that didn't work turned into something that did work. I think another example is, we had a lot of supply chain issues in 2020 and 2021. I'm sure everybody did. And at first, I think there were a lot of situations where because of that supply chain, you would get, different like disputes where customers are not happy with the long shipping times or suppliers are not communicative or you miscommunicate with them. And this just resulted in a lot of operational, I guess, mishaps or just issues. So we kind of saw a lot of that in 2021. And ultimately, we developed better procedures. Our staff are a lot better at just communicating with the customer and the supplier. We kind of cover our bases. We get things in writing so we are ready if a dispute comes up. And we kind of are just a lot better at it. And so in 2022, the operations have just gone a lot smoother. Now, obviously, there is less supply chain issues as well in 2022 and 2023. But overall, we're just very prepared for these types of things, maybe even overly prepared, which I think is just very good because as the business owner, it just lets me, sleep very well at night and I don't have to worry about, oh no, this order, what's going to happen with that order? Like I can, be very hands off and just trust that, yeah, things will be taken care of. So yeah, those are kind of the big things that I think of when what worked and what didn't work.
Nice. And yeah, I noticed that your suppliers are all located in the US. So speaking to the supply chain issues that existed at the height of the pandemic, I think a lot of the supply chain issues were magnified for manufacturers coming abroad in other countries. So it's definitely a competitive advantage to have your suppliers domestic, be able to communicate with them well. And I'm sure that had to at least reduce the shipping times or the lead times as much as they could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine what it would be like to have to source things from overseas or like from China. But yeah, definitely all of our suppliers are in that lower 48. So yeah, that does make things a little bit easier when it comes to shipping times and delays and whatnot. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about how traffic is generated here because I see on your listing that you actually have a pretty nice spread of traffic. I'm seeing it's coming from paid search and then direct, and I'm seeing organic. So can you talk a little bit about how you drive traffic to your business?
Yeah, so definitely the majority of the traffic is from paid traffic. We're mainly using Google Ads. So that's the shopping ads as well as the text ads. And then we also do some retargeting on the Google Ads. And then we also use Facebook for retargeting. That's kind of the spread of where the paid traffic is coming from. And then we have a good amount of direct traffic too, as you mentioned. And I think that's mainly because, we're selling luxury items. People aren't necessarily just visiting our webpage once and then, buying right away. And we have a entire sales funnel. Maybe people are being retargeted by email or they visit our page, multiple times, or they're talking to our salespeople. And so I think that's a source of direct traffic. And then we do have some organic sales and organic traffic as well. I guess I would add that I kind of as an aside about the organic sales, I think the listing says it's 6%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I think in terms of sales, it's probably more than 6% that I think attribute to organic traffic. There's just some products where we're not really running that much ads for, if at all, but we're getting people to buy them. And so I think that's a really good sign. And also, we've invested in content and SEO as well. We have about 50 articles on the website for various products. And then we also have a pretty good backlink profile that we've, spent good amount of money on, trying to make SEO like a growth vector for the business. So that's something that we've invested in and we expect to go up as well. So, but yeah, I guess to answer the question, yeah, good amount of paid traffic, but we also have other diverse sources of traffic too.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, with higher ticket items, definitely that organic search being 6% or maybe even higher, as you mentioned, that can still contribute to a lot of revenue and profit. And it's also an indication that this is a potential growth opportunity, given that you are driving this amount based upon 50 articles and having done some SEO. So it seems like if a buyer is wondering about how to potentially grow this business in a way that doesn't require just paying more on ad spend, then it seems like this is a potential avenue.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you have some people on your team that actually are salespeople. So I think this is a good time to talk about the work required on the business. One, the amount and the type of work that you personally do to maintain the business. So a business owner would expect to do, but then also maybe a little bit about who is included in your team, because I think it's common to hear that there is a salesperson or a sales team associated with the business.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of the breakdown of all the people are in the business and who does what, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So right now I've got 2 VAs, I've got 1 salesperson, and he's a repat. So they both live in Manila, the Philippines, but he doesn't have a Filipino accent because I think he's originally from UK or something. So that works really well on the sales side because I think customers can't really tell that he's a VA. So that's a salesperson. And then I have the other VA handling customer service as well as operations. So customer service is, a customer calls in, hey, can I get an update on my order? Or hey, can I exchange something? That's customer service. Operations is kind of like keeping things smooth. Like, oh, we told the supplier this, but we need to make a follow-up, or they promised that they were going to answer this question, but they didn't do anything. So we'll follow up on that. Or, oh, making sure that we collected the payment or that we got a refund, just kind of keeping things smooth so that you don't have to worry about it. That's what I would consider operations. And so that pretty much covers like 95% of the stuff that goes on day to day in the business. So what that leaves me to do is I don't work very much. I would say it's probably like 7 to 10 hours a month or something like that. And all I really do, because, all the day-to-day stuff is covered. So obviously there's, escalations from time to time. Like if particular order, they don't know what to do with it, and they might just ask a question like, hey, how should we deal with this? Sometimes it's, small questions like, hey, this product is now discontinued. Like, what do you want to do about it? It's like, okay, let's just take it off the website then, or let's see if there's another similar thing that we could do. So those things are really quick questions that happen every now and then. In terms of like maybe consistent responsibilities, I would say checking on the ad account is something that I do once or twice a month, just to, go in and see, hey, where are my conversions? Hey, this thing's selling kind of well. Let's just up the bids a little bit. So that's also a really quick process. And then I would say the third thing that I kind of handle. So obviously I'm the only person that looks at the credit card and the bank account. So, I just make sure I pay my credit card and, just make sure like, oh, this invoice looks right. Or if I have a question like, hey, this invoice looks too high, hey, can you go ask the supplier, what's up with that? So those are basically the things that I look at. And yeah, it's really not that much time at all. And the questions that I think that get quote unquote escalated to me are pretty simple. There's just like a pretty good understanding, I think, in our company that like, hey, the VIs know like what their scope is and what they're not able to handle. And then if there's anything that is more important, they'll just like ask me. So I think it's like very, very streamlined business.
Got it. Nice. Seems like the tasks that you do aren't too technical that a buyer wouldn't be able to just pick up and run with it. I never heard of that, a repat VA. Yeah, I don't know how common that is. That's cool to hear, though. So let's talk a little bit about the opportunities for this business. If you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
Definitely one way I would probably grow it is the email marketing. I think you mentioned earlier we have 4,000 subscribers on our email list. And honestly, right now, we don't really do much with it. We just send like one promotional a year for Black Friday. And then we have kind of a standard, welcome series and abandoned cart series. But that's about it. And there's like so much more room to monetize that email marketing list. And right now, we don't even like look at it. We don't track it. We don't see what's working. And there's just like so much room for growth there, I think. So that's one. The second one is definitely SEO or content. As I briefly mentioned before, we have started to spend like time and effort on building those things. So those assets are there, but you guys probably already knows it takes probably 9 months, 12 months to kind of start seeing any results from the work that you put in, just because it takes time to build it and for Google to recognize you. And so we started that probably like 11 months ago. So I doubt we're really seeing that much of the, I guess, the
Juice
harvest
from the
from,
squeeze.
yeah, exactly. So that already is going to be something that I'm expecting you probably will see some results from it in the next 6 months from the work that we've already put in. We have an Ahrefs domain rating of 32, which I think is pretty good. And obviously, somebody coming in here and working who knows SEO a little bit better than I do, yeah, there's already kind of like, a foundation there. And I think there's definitely a lot of growth prospects, especially also I mentioned that we are getting sales from these products that I think are from organic traffic because we're not really running ads for some of those suppliers and we're still getting the sales. So definitely that's a growth opportunity as well. And then I would say a third growth opportunity is the way we're positioned in terms of our products. It's in the home niche. And I would say it's kind of a more general store. And the reason that's good is because it gives the business owner a lot of flexibility in terms of how they want to grow in terms of the product selection. So pretty much anything that you could think of that you want to expand into and add more products or anything that you think is a business opportunity, you're going to be able to add it to the store and have it kind of mesh with what's already there. It's not going to look weird and it's not going to like dilute your brand or anything. And so that's something that we have actually tried as well. This could actually be a fourth growth opportunity, which is in the last 2.5 years, I've tried a good amount of suppliers, maybe over 100, and obviously not every supplier works out. Obviously, there's the ones that work out from that, and those are our like core business. But there's also a good amount where I just really haven't spent the time and the effort that it deserves. Those products deserve to really try to make it work. It's like knowing the customer, knowing the product, like optimizing the product page and running ads or the SEO. There's a lot that could go into try to making something work. And I know other people are selling these products already. And so we have a good amount of products on the website already that are kind of just like there. And those are growth opportunities already if you wanted to just try and take another look at those. So that's, I guess, another growth vector. So anyway, yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to grow this company.
Yeah, sounds like it. And domain rating within the 30s. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what the normal domain rating is for dropshipping businesses, but that does seem like an unusually high level of authority in a space where dropshipping doesn't really, like, it doesn't strike me as a type of business model that really doubles down on driving organic traffic and kind of going the content site strategy. So yeah, I definitely see some opportunity there. And then, yeah, it is an interesting opportunity to just know that you have the catalog of products that are even on the site to sell. And it's just about pretty much marketing them and figuring out how to increase the sales on them.
Yeah, and I guess if I could add to something about how we've invested in the SEO and content profile for our store. So the average ticket size on our store is $2,500. And so that's going to include some stuff that's lower, 1,500, 2,000. And it's also going to include products that are at a higher price point, 5,000, 8,000, even, 5 digits. And so if you think about how much you're making on some of these products, like you could be making $1,000 on a single sale. And so when you think about, okay, is it worth it to invest in organic traffic? It's kind of a no-brainer in the sense that all you need is one sale from all of that. How much can you do with $1,000 that you're going to make from one sale? If you reinvest that into content or links or whatever, you can get a lot from that. And that's evergreen, right? That's just going to stick with your site forever. And every time that results in a sale, it doesn't matter if it's every few months or less, it's going to pay for itself really fast. It just is going to take time for the work that you put in to really get up to speed, like the 9-month delay that I was mentioning earlier. But in terms of growth, yeah, I think it's a really great way to grow. I think the numbers just work out really well because it's high ticket products. You're making so much on every single sale.
Yeah, that's a good point because that does change the kind of business compared to a business where you have to sell a high volume of low priced products in order to even consider doubling down and investing on certain growth strategies or tactics.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with any opportunity, there's always risk associated with any business. So, what do you think are the biggest risks with this business or business model that a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely, I think, standard operational risks. So I would say supply chain, I don't see that being too much of an issue. It's kind of just like a risk that's in the background currently. But I think coming out of the pandemic, I think we all should be aware that, yeah, we want to just know how to handle it if something becomes 1 month ETA or 2 months ETA. But we're definitely prepared for that. We have those procedures ready and everything. And then I think another risk is dropshipping. It's a very relationship-based business, mainly with your suppliers. Maybe one of your suppliers could go out of business. Hopefully not. We've only seen one of them go bankrupt out of like the 100 that we've seen. And we didn't really sell them anyway, so it didn't really matter. But that thing that does, yeah, I don't know why they went bankrupt, but so that's just like a risk. Like, maybe ownership changes with the supplier or, your point of contact changes, they add items, they take away items. Yeah, it's just a thing that, happens, but most of the time doesn't really affect you. But it's definitely a risk. And then I would say the last thing is I think competition is pretty fierce in dropshipping just because, the barrier to entry is not super high. Anybody can basically come up with a store. Anybody can try to work with suppliers and whatnot. There is a good amount of competition, but I think, part of the benefit of, let's say, buying a store rather than building your own is you have kind of a moat with established store. So, this store has been around for almost 3 years. And there's things that are established as a result of that. One, like the supplier relationship is like, okay, we've been working with these particular suppliers for a long time. They know us. We've got the workflow down. And also, not every supplier you can just get in nowadays. They've become pretty selective. We're grandfathered in with some of our suppliers. So this comes with being established. We also have, established procedures, established Google Ads account. Our website is established. So, our SEO rankings, our organic rankings, those are things you can't just get overnight. And like the way the product pages and everything just about the website, the customer experience, that this has been tweaked over the last, couple of years as we've ran the website. So those are things that you don't get day one if you try to build something, but these are things that come with an established site. So these kind of help to create a moat around competition, which definitely is a risk, but you are at least protected from that by having an established store.
Yeah. I see another form of defensibility that you've started to invest in content. And the fact that you are selling higher ticket items just means that there is a bit more involved. Like it probably does necessitate a salesperson to some degree, or that customers are likely going to not purchase immediately, like when they first visit the site. So there's have to be some systems in place. So I can see a bit of differentiation that might not exist, just a completely new competitor who comes into the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, a few housekeeping questions to wrap this up. How much support are you willing to offer a new buyer?
I'm willing to offer 45 days. I know 30 is standard, but I'm happy to do a bit more. And honestly, even more than 45 is, I would definitely consider it. I just want to make it easy transaction for the buyer. So yeah, I'm definitely happy to provide support that's necessary.
Okay, great. And just confirming that you commit to a non-compete after the business is sold?
Yeah, I'm not planning to do any type of, e-commerce or dropshipping or anything after this. So yeah, definitely happy to do a non-compete.
Great. And are you open to something like an earnout?
Yeah, I would be willing to consider something like an earnout for sure.
Okay. And putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it definitely goes hand in hand with a lot of the growth opportunities, which we already listed a lot of those. And I guess if I want to say something that's like not repeating myself, maybe another thing is this business is very well organized. So every little part of the procedures of how we handle the relationships and whatnot, it's just at some point I went through and kind of tried to make it as best as possible. And so I think that's going to show itself over time. The organization is going to help a lot. And the fact that it's not sloppy anywhere, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's sloppy. I think that's going to help a lot. And, in addition to all of the ways that you can grow, there's, 3 or 4 ways we already mentioned, and the fact that we have that moat around a lot of these risks. And we've had investment in content and SEO that you're kind of almost getting for free. It's just kind of like, okay, I started it and here you go. You haven't even seen any of the results from it yet, but you're going to see the results from it. Yeah, I think that makes it really attractive for someone who wants to either get into or expand their portfolio of online businesses. And ultimately, I think it just has a lot of things going for it. And so for someone who really wants to give it a try and wants to spend the time and energy to just get it up and running and give it the attention that it deserves, yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about organization and it not being a sloppy process. I think one of the biggest concerns with dropshipping, since it is a business model, unlike Amazon FBA, for example, where you are owning the support process, you aren't necessarily owning the fulfillment process, but you are kind of responsible for that if things go wrong. So just the fact that you do have systems in place that ensure that this dropshipping experience isn't one that feels like just out of control, I think is good to know, definitely. And I think your point is valid about you kind of know because it's your experience of running the business. And as you said, you spend less than 10 hours per week, seems like even 3 hours per week on operating the business. So definitely doesn't seem like a full-time commitment in order to sustain this business at its current level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if I could add one more thing about it being organized is that because it's a high ticket items, yeah, the top line revenue is like $150,000 or something. Like, yeah, if you're selling like $20 fidget spinners, like, yeah, that's like, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000 fidget spinners that you're dealing with every month. That sounds like a nightmare. But for us, that could just be like a couple sales a day to get to the 150,000. That's like way more manageable.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
Yeah, so it's a lot less work than selling $20 products for sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
that would be a nightmare. Okay. Well, Kevin, is there anything else that you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
I think that's pretty much it. I think we've covered pretty much everything about the business.
Okay. Well, if any buyers do have any questions who are listening to this, they can definitely schedule a call with you to ask anything that they want to discuss with you directly. I think this is the best place to wrap up. So, Kevin, thanks so much for sharing your story and joining us on today's episode. And I hope your business is purchased in the near future and by the perfect buyer.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right. I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 67137. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.